Freeze! Please! Drop the luggage now.
Before the airport arrest, his ex-wife had suddenly vanished. And then everything turned dark.
At first, police treated it like a missing woman case, but something didn't feel right.
The people who knew her best quickly realized this didn't feel like a normal disappearance.
The interview notes contradict his timeline here.
He said they hadn't spoken in months, but the phone records say otherwise.
Look, I've told you everything I know. I don't know why she would say that about me. I was nowhere near the place.
And once suspicion grew, detectives started moving fast because time was suddenly everything.
Then investigators found the clue that changed everything.
He may have been planning to run.
That's when police tracked him to the airport and realized he might disappear for good.
And just before takeoff, police moved in, knowing this arrest could expose a murder.
Within hours, detectives stopped treating this like a simple disappearance and started fearing murder.
He was here on the 15th, but the timeline says he was with her. Check the GPS data on the rental car again.
Mr. Kim, do you have a moment?
We'd like to ask you a few questions about the break-in last night.
Of course, officer. How can I help?
Soon, detectives weren't just asking where she went. They were asking if she was already dead.
Now the pressure was brutal, because if he was running, police were already losing time.
Then, one travel move changed the whole case, and detectives knew he might flee.
At that point, the airport wasn't just a terminal anymore. It was a moving crime scene.
Police knew one thing for sure. If he boarded that plane, this case could get much worse.
Police, hands behind your back now.
I've done nothing wrong. Let go of me.
Once he was in custody, detectives started digging even deeper into what really happened.
And the more police rebuilt her timeline, the less random her disappearance started to look. Look at this message. He threatened her right here. And she filed the restraining order immediately after. It matches the timeline.
What first looked chaotic was starting to feel much more deliberate and much more dangerous. By then, the search no longer felt like rescue. It was starting to feel like recovery.
And by then, the people who loved her most were already fearing the worst.
And suddenly, that airport trip no longer looked normal. It looked like an escape plan. At this point, police weren't just chasing answers anymore. They were closing in on murder, and then police found the kind of evidence that can turn suspicion into something terrifyingly real. The closer detectives looked, the more his story started breaking apart piece by piece. There were now gaps in the timeline that police believed were too dangerous to ignore.
And the longer she stayed silent, the more that silence started sounding like evidence.
So detectives shifted hard onto one question. What exactly did he do after she vanished?
And with every new lead, the pressure around him kept getting tighter and tighter.
By then, the search had taken a darker turn, and everyone could feel it.
This area feels wrong.
Now that airport arrest looked even worse, because it started feeling less like panic and more like guilt.
What started as a disappearance had now turned into a full homicide investigation.
timeline doesn't work. He couldn't have moved the body and gotten back that quickly.
He didn't. He used the service tunnel.
The satellite imagery confirms it. This is where he parked the van.
I have a possible location here by the guardrail.
All right, let's secure the area and document the scene.
Because underneath the evidence, this case was starting to look like betrayal at its darkest.
At this point, detectives could feel they were getting dangerously close to the final truth.
And then the case took the kind of turn that can break a family forever.
In the wake of such loss, there are no easy answers, only the quiet rooms left behind and the grief that follows.
At this point, detectives were no longer chasing possibilities. They were chasing proof.
Piece by piece, police were building toward the one answer everyone was terrified to hear.
And the less he gave investigators, the more his silence started looking strategic.
The motive is clear. It wasn't just about the money. It was betrayal, pure and simple, leading straight to murder.
By then, detectives could feel they were only steps away from final confirmation.
And then the truth started hitting this case in the hardest way possible.
By now, the case was closing around him from every direction, and fast.
And every search effort now felt...
At this point, that airport move no longer looked explainable. It looked like escape, period.
And the people who loved her were now bracing for the answer they feared most.
Behind the scenes, investigators were now building the endgame of the entire case.
You think they care about you? They left you out here alone. It's just you and me now.
By then, everyone knew this was no longer a missing woman case. It was something far worse.
And with every new step, the truth was becoming too heavy for this case to hide. And now the final answer was so close, no one involved would leave unchanged.
We finally have a match. He's the one we've been looking for. Get me a warrant now!
By this point, the final truth was so close. Everyone could feel the impact coming. By this point, the final truth was so close. Everyone could feel the impact coming.
By then, the last layer of protection around him was starting to disappear fast.
And in the end, that airport arrest seemed to tell the whole story without saying a word.
They were the perfect family in the perfect neighborhood. But sometimes, the darkest secrets hide in plain sight.
If stories like this stay with you, like, subscribe, and comment for more real crime cases.